Well, hello there. As I promised, here it is. I'll have a link below for this. Should take you, depends on how slow you read it, roughly about 10 minutes or less to read it. Um, Simplicity is divinity, and Mother Nature is really simple. Like I said, she's a dreadlock, muddy feet chick, with hemp skirt and dreadlocks, right? Something along those lines. And it has simplified fields into three categories. Ultimately, there's only one category, which is right here in the center, which is the ether. Everything, of course, is an ether perturbation modality. It's really simple. People talk about fields in the ether, like there's something in the ether. It's like, no, it is an ether perturbation modality, just like ice, water, and steam are different modalities, of course, of one thing. So have primordial conjugate field, which is the magnetic and the dielectric. Of course, the field geometry of magnetism is the toroidal field. The field geometry of the dielectric also, too, is so-called gravity, because it's only a distinction in attribution in gravity and so-called magnetic attraction, which does not exist. That's mutual mass acceleration, which is point source in the case of magnetism, and non-point source, or mutual mass acceleration towards the lowest or null pressure point in the case of so-called gravity. Then, of course, we have that which for most people are familiar with, but of course they don't know what it is, compound low-energy cyclic circuits such as light and electricity. I put the ether here in the middle. A very simple graph, and kind of have one of those holy cow moments, and all the moments that I've had of discovery like that over the past many years have been, it's like, oh, so blatantly obvious, kind of like the reconciliation of light and matter. It's like, well, it's blatantly obvious now what matter fundamentally is. And we have simplex high-energy circuits, such as matter, scalar, and black holes. Very, very simple. Has to be. Ultra-high-energy circuits, by the way, cannot have a transverse component, found in the case of low-energy circuits, in the case of light and electricity. Some of light has rather high energy in the case of gamma and X-ray, but still incredibly low energy relative to matter. And explaining these is incredibly simple. If you like, I'd like to go over these and maybe editorialize on them as I read what these are in the primordial conjugate fields. Of course, the negative image of torus is a hyperboloid, negative image of hyperboloid is a torus. Together, these are collectively the binary system of the magnetic and the dielectric, which of course makes up the entire universe. Magnetism is the toroidal ether rarefaction, fundamental force, and dielectric field, and loss of energy or inertia, of course. Centrifugal force and motion, which both create space and resultant dielectric torsion, or what we conventionally call gravity, of course. This three-dimensional S-curve primordial force vector, which extrapolates into and as the torus of that which we call the magnetic field, i.e. the dielectric field and loss of energy or inertia, which of course manifests as that which humans call magnetism. I've explained this endlessly in countless different videos, but collectively, having three different categories, which of course are ultimately only one thing, simplifies things rather simply. That was kind of redundant there. Simplifies things rather simply. Sorry about that. I'll edit that out of this video. As far as magnetism, the dielectric, of course, is the hyperboloidal field of increasing inertia towards counter space, both in discharge and manifestation. Magnetism, inversely, is a toroidal field and force, i.e. energy dissipation. Together, these are the conjugate fields of the universe, and each field geometry, is the inverse geometry of the other. In the case of dielectricity or gravity, the dielectric is a dendritic discharge towards counter space. People misunderstand dielectricity, which of course is counterspatial increasing inertia and acceleration, but like lightning, for example, is a dielectric discharge. We're actually talking about ether torsion here. And there's a reason why both lightning and like Lichtenberg patterns, where people get hit by lightning and they leave patterns on their neck and back and chests, have a dendritic pattern. The smaller the space, the higher the dielectric or capacitance. A spatial energy discharge, such as lightning or electrostatics. Capacitance discharge, of course, has meaning increasing inertia. Inversely, loss of said inertia is, of course, that which we call magnetism. Gravity is the mutual mass acceleration towards counter space. So-called gravity is non-discharging dielectric centripetal torsion dissipation, i.e. toroidal rarefaction, or what we call magnetism. Gravity is not a field modality in itself, just like electricity. Rather, is merely a dielectric subvariant. Now I need a separate video, and it would take about 20 minutes, even though it's divinely simple, and talk about the plane of inertia, the dielectric plane of inertia, or the hyperboloidal geometry that is the dielectric. In the case of an object, the dielectric field is thence hyperboloidal. But when we're actually talking about a dielectric discharge, in the case of electrostatics or lightning, it is dendritic. I don't know if you're familiar with like dendrites in your brain. Dendritic discharge, and always the discharge in counter space. Let's go on to compound low-energy circuits, and these, of course, are cyclic circuits in the case of electricity and light. Light, of course, is a coaxial circuit of ether, of the ether medium, longitudinal rarefaction compression of dielectric pulses, accompanied by transverse cyclic, magnetic, and electric, magnetism and dielectric collectively, because that's what electricity is. These are spatial temporal manifestations, and this, of course, is the most efficient ether modality of any field modality. Both radio, visible light, gamma, X-ray are all one and the same thing. They're only typified by their capacitances and, of course, their frequency, resultant wavelength. Light is not an emission, a particle, wave-particle duality, nor is light moving from point A to point B. The rate of induction or the hysteresis of the ether is the assumed c, or proverbial speed of light. This is the rate of saturation propagation of the energy circuit of light. Tesla called light a sound wave in the ether, which of course is correct. Sound is not an emission either, or something moving either. Rather is a perturbation of the medium. Of course, right here at the center of everything is the ether. As meant inertia in, proverbially in, counter space. All fields, of course, are ether perturbation modalities. The ether, of course, is pure non-Cartesian potential. Scientists, so-called, have extreme difficulty defining potential, and they can't even define the words energy or field at all. If you don't believe me, ask them. Electricity, the two components of the electric field are the magnetic and the dielectric. Charles Brody Steinmetz, Electrical Discharges, Waves and Impulses, said this on page 12 of his book. That was printed in 1914. Even he said it was completely convoluted and complicated back then. That's over 100 years ago. Electricity is the compound cyclic field modality composed of both components of the primordial conjugate fields, magnetism, dielectricity. Understanding electromagnetism and all electrical phenomena becomes abundantly simplex when one grasps that the electric field is a compound binary field of the magnetic and dielectric fields. Electrical transmission requires conductor fields for its directed propagation, like the power lines back of your house. Light, of course, being more compounded as a coaxial circuit that light is, has its own field guides in the nature of its coaxial circuit. Electricity is not a field modality unto itself. Likewise, the same true of gravity. Yeah. Most human beings think gravity is gravity. We have light, electricity. But electricity and gravity are nothing other than compounded, in the case of electricity, compounded magnetic and dielectric, and so-called gravity is nothing other than a subvariant of dielectric acceleration, or what humans conventionally and incorrectly call magnetic attraction. No different than electrostatic cling, which every child is even familiar with. Now we go on to something simpler. We got to simplex ultra-high energy circuits, which includes matter, scalar, and of course black holes. As I said, matter is nothing other than super high energy light, and that's of course exactly what it is. Ultra high energy light, no frequency. When frequency and energy are so high, light reaches a non-propagating energy barrier. This is only one fundamental part. There is only one fundamental particle with two express modalities. All free neutrons become protons. This is well-established fact among all scientific fields. All free neutrons become protons. Therefore, a neutron is nothing other than a field expression submodality of one fundamental particle. The so-called electron particle does not exist. Even J.J. Thomson said the principle of same exists. J.J. Thomson says an electron, the principle thereof is 1 unit of dielectric induction. If you think that's crazy, I will remind you that Nikola Tesla said there's no such thing as an electron particle. Eric Dollard, Charles Brody Steinmetz, Oliver Heaviside, the greats of electrical theory, said there's no such thing as a charge-carrying particle, that which we call an electron. It's completely ridiculous, it's asinine, it's illogical, it's absurd. All atoms, of course, are compounded modalities of hydrogen. All There's no possibility of even saying anything against that because it's an irreducible fact. Period. Everything is just a compound modality of hydrogen. So therefore there's only one fundamental mass particle, which is a transspectral ultra-high energy light. When an ultra-high energy threshold is reached, frequency becomes impossible. This is the tension barrier of the ether itself, and the junction at which matter manifests. This is many magnitudes above that of gamma radiation. Scalar. People love to talk about scalar because it's so closely associated with Tesla. Nikola Tesla called this the death ray. Nikola Tesla called the death ray is scalar. Scalar is really kind of simple, even though it confuses a lot of people. Scalar is transluminal but submatter measured in volts per second. There is no transverse component. It's longitudinal and torsion energy, magnetic force torsion bubbles, if you will, analogously to mentally picture it. Tapping inertia release from the ether. The higher the energy of scalar, the lower the frequency. Inverse to that of light, where the higher the frequency is, the greater the capacitance, or the greater the energy. Powerful and destructive energy dissipation, force cavitation of the ether. Let me repeat that. I hope that didn't sound too complicated. It's not really if you just read it slowly. Powerful, what scalar is powerful and destructive energy dissipation and force cavitation of the ether. Very, very simple. Actually, it is simple. Some people say, those are big words. Like, not really. Not to me anyway, and they're not meant to be big words. I never, ever, ever intentionally use big words. I always take offense at people that think that I try to use big words, sound smart. I've never, ever, wrung my hands and planned to use big words on anybody. I've never, ever done that. Let's go on a black hole. Black hole is really simple too. And, it's not a hole. The only reason it's black is because there's no light emitted from it. But really there is. Form of galactic jets. There are also two called Astrophysical Jets. Two names for the same thing. Black hole is an ultra-high energy supermass with no magnitude. Dielectric acceleration has overthrown magnetism's ability to keep this supermass in the mass-visible universe. Black holes emit at their geomagnetic precessional axes ultra-high energy light, i.e. hydrogen, which of course is the simplex foundation of all matter. You can see these. They're stretching out for countless light years, just trillions and trillions and trillions of tons of hydrogen. These are called galactic jets. A black hole, in simple, is an ether torsion faucet emitting enormous amounts of hydrogen, or UHE light, meaning, of course, ultra-high energy light. If you think there are big words here, I counter to you that there's not. If you think that this is complicated, I counter to you it's not. I mean, I've taken every field modality here, dismissed two of them, like electricity and gravity, because they're easily dismissible. They're nothing other than subvariant misunderstandings of things far more simple. If you think you're smarter than Charles Proteus Steinmetz, then there's something wrong with you. Because even he said, people don't understand electricity. It's really simple. It's the compound of dielectricity and magnetism collectively. That means we don't dismiss the phenomena of electricity we all know exists, right, which is powering this computer. We're saying that it's not an autonomous field. It's not a something in itself. Yes, it's not a thing in itself standing out there alone, like magnetism is. And even magnetism is the dielectric field. Ultimately, there's only one thing. And by saying thing, that would be incorrect and inappropriate because the thing means phenomena, and the ether is not phenomena. But all of this, I'm quite proud of myself. I hope you like it. Very simple. The primordial conjugate fields, magnetism and electricity, which are both one and the same thing, because magnetism is the dielectric field. Compound low-energy cyclic circuits, such as light and electricity. You dismiss electricity. It's the compound of magnetism and dielectricity. Yeah. And simplex, ultra-high energy circuits. Matter, scalar, and black holes. Really, this is all infinitely reducible to what sits right here in the center. I hope you like this. I promised it. I delivered. I dare you to refute it. You might complain, but you won't be able to refute it. I hope you like this. And any donation is always warmly welcome. Trust me, it really is welcome. The harder I work, the less I make. The whole world has gone crazy these past couple years. But I hope you like it. The link for it is below. It is a simple image. And also, too, the link below for my field definitions is also there. Suggest you might want to read that also, because most of the words that are in here are explained in my fields definition list. This is kind of a holy cow moment for me in making this. You might not think so, but I'm not running a popularity contest. I appreciate wisdom, and wisdom is its own reward. It really is. I don't know if you believe that or not. That's neither here nor there, but I mean it when I say that. So thank you so much for watching. Like I said, check the links below. Any donation is always highly warmly welcome. Or you can tell me how much you hate it. Send me an email. I hate it. I don't agree. Don't say you don't agree. At least tell me why you don't agree. Thanks for watching. Lux e veritas. And they say in Russia, увидимся. See you later.